Oh, we're comparing two very cheap, inexpensive Scamazon carburetors straight out of the China Republic. These are going to, one of these two, I'll flip a coin, we'll see which one goes, are going to replace the carburetor on a 7 horsepower Tecumseh, which is powering a White's 750 Snow Boss. If I remember correctly, I stopped out at a local, I would call her a neighbor, down the street, hop, skip, and a jump. She called me up, said her snowblower was giving her some trouble. I packed the tools up, I ran over there, and unfortunately I didn't have a spare carburetor with. Usually when someone tells me that they have a snowblower that is running but isn't running very well, I can clean them out pretty quickly and get them up and running. Turning these guys around, comparing them side by side, etc. Choke levers are identical for the most part. The intake is identical for the most part. It looks like the machining on the one. This is the $2 or $3 more expensive one. No, this was the $2 or $3 less expensive one. The only difference that I really noticed here was that the less expensive one actually has threaded holes, which in most of the knockoff carburetors that I buy from Amazon, they do not have that. The other thing that I noticed here is the primer button line. This one is probably brass or brass coated. I'm gonna guess brass coated because it just seems too expensive or too rich to use brass. The other thing that I like about these aftermarket guys are that the idle mixture screws have adjustable idle mixture screws, unlike a lot of the manufacturers between, I'd say, like 97 and maybe going into like 2006, before you got into the overhead valves when you still had flatheads. They took away the adjuster screw, which made things problematic in my opinion, because when you had some fine tuning that you wanted to do, it was hard to do that without having that adjustment. Still like the purge button, always good to have. I've seen units without the purge button, which just sets it up for imminent failure. Noticeably, trying to see. The other thing too here is brass or brass coated. It looks like it's, I'd have to scratch it. Excuse me. The needle in here though, let's see. The emulsion tube. They look different? Can't really tell. No, they look about identical. That one looks like it has a little bit of a malfunction there, so probably brass coated everything. Bottom side of this gasket just looks like it's newer than this gasket, honestly. This one is definitely a little wider. Looks like it's been sitting around for a little while. Someone probably ordered these in the thousands. And just trying to do this one-handed and keep this in focus for you. Oh, the other thing too was the Welch plug on this one was rounded, and the Welch plug on this one was flat. I don't think that's a big deal or problem, in my opinion, but identical. Idle mixture screws. Sure, they're both plastic on the inside. Only thing that I ever noticed with these is if you scratch the inside trying to clean them up, they will rust out if you have alcohol and water in there, because, you know, alcohol attracts water, whether or not you know that. Ooh, baby. And, I mean, got a dimple. It's a weird dimple. Both plastic floats. Don't notice anything special about the plastic floats. I'm sure this will be a fine replacement. Either or. I might send the more expensive one back. And believe it or not, the more expensive one does not have the threaded holes for the mounting bracket, but that's not really a big deal either. It's weird with those. It's weird that yep. And the other thing too that you'll notice with these, and I won't disassemble it. Maybe I will. I'm compelled. Come on. The other thing that you'll notice with these, too, the cheaper knockoffs, especially if you're out servicing these on a regular basis, these do not have the regular size rubber fitting in here that you would normally get. I'm going to have to look at the other one here. This one does not have a rubber fitting in it at all. And honestly, the tip doesn't look like it actually has a rubber. Is it a rubber tip? Yeah, it's a rubber tip. So what happens with these, and sorry that it's going in and out, these rubber tips, if you leave that ethanol on there or even leave gas in there too long, these will degrade quickly. Now, on an OEM carburetor, you will have a seat in here, a needle seat, which you can use a special tool, which basically looks like grandma's knitting crochet pen or needle, to pull that seat out of that hole. And then you can replace that seat if you have a problem with gas flowing out of the intake of your carburetor, or that tiny little hole right there, because it's flooding out because gravity just keeps pushing the gasoline down into it. So that's one of the downsides to this if you were out servicing these in the field. These are pretty inexpensive to get, but in my opinion, it is easier to replace the seat in one of these out in the field and one of the OEM ones out in the field, because I can just pull that out and punch a new seat in there and be on my way. I don't have to remove the pin. I can actually flip the whole float down without having to remove that pin. That being said, cheap Chinesium carburetors, they will do the job, and they do the job well, and they do the job cheap. Can't complain about that, and you'll get several more years of service out of this. And I always go ahead and I start preaching about the stable, you know, making sure you put stable in it if you don't have ethanol free gas. Make sure you get through that gas if you got stable in it. Make sure you get through that gas, you know, at some point throughout the year. You don't want it sitting around for longer than a year if it's got ethanol in it. You really don't want it sitting around longer than a year if it doesn't have ethanol in it. But you know, I put stable in both non-ethanol and ethanol gasoline. So hopefully you found this somewhat informative. You know, you can get a cheap carburetor, 10, 15, 20 bucks off of Scamazon. Sometimes they come with you know, fuel filters, and they come with spark plugs and stuff like that. I don't care. I mean, honestly, I've been doing this you know, 6 or 7 years now, pretty much full time, and I haven't had any real issues. The only thing, like I said, with these cheap steel bowls, you will find that if you try to clean these with an abrasive material and you get some scratches in that finish, it will start to rust. And unfortunately, it kind of looks like maybe something was sitting in that carburetor already. Somebody might have tried to, that's maybe, I think I'd said that already. It looked like maybe someone had tried to hook this one up or whatever, and then they took it back to the shop and they cleaned it out. But yeah.